breaking the cemetery!
Look, we love to give Velma flack, but this man did choose a dog over her. Scooby-Doo has more variants than COVID. There has been 14 shows, 6 specials, and enough movies to make even Marvel blush. Scooby-Doo is one of those franchises that will never, ever die. 'Cause money. That longevity, though, has proven a blessing and a curse, as when you have a series that will never end, writers will never run out of new things to try. Some of them will work, others not so much. But one of the more interesting takes on the dog and his friends was Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, where they took a show synonymous with one-off mysteries and created an overarching story with deep lore and made the characters so horny. Like, more than you remember.
He's like one of those geniuses that no one understands until they're dead.
Yeah, this shit went all in on character drama, and we love it for that, with one of its biggest swings being the failed romance between Shaggy and Velma. This was a lot, with the internet praising and hating what they did with this couple since pretty much day one. And I can see why. They made Velma an aggro control freak. Shaggy's in a love triangle between his girl and his dog. But naturally, unfortunately, people were way more on Velma's behavior than anyone else's. Because of course they were. So in the interest of prosperity, reminding everyone that this is one of the best, messiest versions of this franchise we have ever gotten, I figured now is as good time as any to talk about Shaggy and Velma's situation, how the show handled them, what it led to, plus all the lessons we learned along the way. As this relationship sucked, but unlike other shows, they were doing it intentionally, making this the kind of mess we love to see, not just make fun of. So let's get into it.
Are you cheating on me?
Oh yeah, things are gonna get real weird. So to give you a little bit more romantic context, Shaggy and Velma have always been weird. When it comes to the Mystery Gang, these two have always been like the most basic version of pair the spares you'll ever see, where them just breathing in the same weed-filled air was enough for people to say fuck it and hook them up. Typically the main romantic couple in the show is Fred and Daphne by virtue of okay, for real, Fred and Daphne are historically put together just cause straight. Fred's the leader, Daphne's the pretty one. They had to be dating, right? Like that is pretty much the vibe for most of their history. It's big jock, popular girl energy. It's not bad, but it is very conventional milquetoast Barbie/Ken the doll versions. It's just expected. Somebody in this friend group just had to be dating, so of course it'd be the pretty ones. Because besides that, Velma's a nerd, Shaggy is built like a scarecrow without the stuffing. So when you look at what's attractive in the 70s, it was very obvious who was and wasn't in. This, though, set up Shaggy and Velma to be kind of romantic free agents for most of the franchise's existence, where with no established love interest, they could be pretty much paired up with anybody and everybody. Shaggy, despite being the team coward, has always tried to put his dick in crazy. He's tried in Spies, Monsters, that one alien hippie, and that real crazy time with Velma's sister. You could call Shaggy's love interest the samples because he is getting this shit for free. Meanwhile, Velma's picks can be best described as who the fuck was that guy, and the answer is almost always the villain. She has some normal picks around here, but where Shaggy's ideas are teased idea that they might show up again, Velma gets either villains, disposable hotties, or gags.
I'm only gonna say this once. Don't touch the glasses.
This was Velma's eclectic niche for most of her history, till modern writers decided to make canon what people have been assuming for years. But overall, for the both of them, it was a lot of experimentation with very little staying power, with the easiest but dullest choice of pairing the two of them together never really gaining much traction. It never really lasted long term, and no one ever fully fucked with it. As it would kind of take Mystery Inc. from a group of friends solving mysteries to two couples and a dog solving mysteries, which has a way more committed vibe than most shows are willing to go with. But this is where Mystery Inc. is built different.
I want to break it to him like gently. I'm just waiting for the right time.
Now this is the bold choice that pretty much starts this show off in a weird place that I really like. As by starting the series with Velma and Shaggy already secretly together, we skip over a very dangerous thing that could have tripped them up later. Investment. If the show had wasted a couple episodes just getting these two together, the expectation would be then that they would stay together. Show would have to make us care, then make us mad when they say F it and break them up. Here though, by having them start together, it changes the equation from a ship we want to happen to a ship that's built to sink. Because this relationship is designed to fail, and you can see the red flags from their very first scene together.
Not here. Velma Velma not in public?
Keep in mind, this is the high point of their relationship, and they're not even doing great here, and we're only going more downhill, as the things they're forgiving or playing off turn out to be features, not bugs, of their relationship. Velma is showing hints of an aggressive and controlling nature, questioning why Shaggy didn't text her back last night, with him admitting he just passed out after eating too much pizza with the dog. This is a minor situation though, it's nothing that they really sweat. You can kind of also play this off as like, okay, one minor thing, then you move on. But this is the first time we ever see them together. So rather than this just being one instance in a much longer story, this is setting the tone for their entire relationship and how they always interact with each other. As the writers want us to know, this is how they interact most of the time. And we see the hints for what's going to cause them to break up later, as Velma can't just let it slide that Shaggy didn't return her messages. Meanwhile, Shaggy is so busy going with the flow, he doesn't realize the ball has floated out of his hand. He's not prioritizing his girlfriend, he's just hanging out with Scooby and just letting everything else happen to him rather than taking the initiative. On its own, nothing here is really a red flag. It's not, oh, we need to be worried about this. But again, the fact that this is the first time we are introduced to them as a couple, that changes things from this being another conversation of many to the show telling us what they're like and what we need to look out for. As we see Shaggy being Mr. Low-Key, only for Velma to grab him by the shirt and pull him in, forcing him to match her tempo, with these brief shots showing a lot of hesitance and reluctance on his part. He's dating Velma, but she's very much initiating and doing it in a way he'll often find very uncomfortable, with Velma not realizing it, which is something we'll keep seeing throughout the show. But while she's aggressive, the real red flag from Velma is how she pretty much goes from, let's tell our friends, he says, yeah, but let me tell Scooby, like let him down gently. And Velma hears that and goes, okay, I understand. And then proceeds to say, fuck his concerns.
I want to break it to him like gently. I'm just waiting for the right time.
How about now? Hey, Scooby!
Shaggy said not yet, and Velma ignores it just to announce that they're an item, even though he's not in a place where he feels comfortable doing that. Shaggy said a line, and Velma fully ignores it, which is bad. It's not a massive thing on paper. Scooby's sentient, yes, but he's also a dog. So having your boyfriend say, oh, sorry, I need to wait to tell Fido about us, yeah, you'd be a little bit annoyed too. But that willingness to go over his head that quickly, with only fading crime getting in the way of forcing Shaggy into what would have been a confrontation. Yeah, this is the one thing where reluctance to make out in the car where you can rationalize through these expressions. That Shaggy he didn't want to get caught, but he was still into it. This though, you can see the clear overstep, and you knew it was only gonna keep happening.
You think, Shaggy?
I think I want more fruit Myers.
Now there is a quiet progression we see in Velma's behavior over the course of the first season, where we go from we get it to she's kinda right but she's being a little bit blunt about it to okay, this is clearly a problem and it's clearly more hers than him. Velma in this show is a bit of a train wreck, though to be clear, Shaggy is not blameless either. While yes, it is way easier to boo-hoo the awkward skinny kid whose biggest crime is being indecisive, this is a way more forgivable crime to people who can all just say same. But Shaggy, while not being openly fuming like Velma, is making this situation worse. As here, he is, and to use the scientific term, a gigantic pussy.
Make up your mind, me or Scooby?
Run for your lives!
Shaggy!
Velma is flawed in pursuing a certain kind of relationship with a guy who clearly isn't ready for it, but Shaggy makes the situation worse by trying to avoid conflict at every turn. When things go wrong, he just goes along with it. He keeps saying that they have to hide their relationship because he's worried about how Scooby will react to it, with this having the effect of Shaggy signaling to Velma that he likes her, but Scooby takes priority, which is a sentiment that he keeps reinforcing as it's just so plainly true.
Velma? Come on, not in front of Scoob. How about we check out Gator Burger?
At pretty much every turn, Shaggy goes from saying, I understand Velma, I'm sorry, I care, but let me ignore you to prioritize Scooby, but I'll tell him about us eventually. Shaggy is afraid of telling Scooby about his new relationship and how that will make him feel, as he's afraid that'll create conflict that he'll have to then deal with and potentially create changes in life that he is just so comfortable living. Shaggy is chill, he doesn't like causing drama, but that leads him to just accept the shitty things going on. He needs to be a little more active in what he wants and push for that. Not to mention the fact that while he is very happy with where they're at, Velma clearly isn't, allowing his comfort to get in the way of him not making the choice, so he keeps procrastinating making any decision till it's obviously too late. And if you want an example of him not prioritizing Velma and not really noticing things, Velma says they should look for clues together and alone. Shaggy says nah and goes with Scooby to do his goofy eat everything that isn't a rotted shtick. Velma, clearly mad, and he kind of just lets the subject drop when she stays mad and is being passive aggressive.
Like, Velma, what did I do?
Nothing. You didn't do anything.
Is Velma handling this well? No. Is Shaggy? No, not really. But it's this lack of perceived effort and prioritization and favoring Scooby that lets this whole situation drag out way longer than it should. If Shaggy had committed to Velma, told Scooby to deal with it, and started dating Velma, this still wouldn't have worked out. But we'll let them realize that they weren't romantically compatible way sooner. Rather than chase the idea that it'll work out soonish, they just gotta get over this one hill when really the problem isn't the walk, it's the company. With this deluding them into thinking that this is working. They're not communicating, then letting misunderstandings play out because it's easier to just take credit than acknowledge a win you stumbled into.
Were you sneaking over to see me?
Yeah.
The mystery gang end up stranded in a creepy hotel. Scooby, having anxiety like his owner, got forced to stay in the car, with Shaggy's attempt to go see him getting misinterpreted by Velma as him finally showing initiative and trying to see her. Just like she was, Velma thinks he's trying, and she also threw a lot of side-eye when the dog and boy were crying about being separated. Velma, yeah, she is that done with them. But Shaggy, picking the path of least resistance, goes along with the assumption, lying to her about why he's here and getting dragged into a separate room where she tries to kiss him as he keeps stealth suggesting that maybe they should go check on Scooby first, only for her inbred redneck gators to burst into the room, with a montage of the rest of the gang running for their lives being framed with the same level of fear as Shaggy being in a room alone with Velma. Things aren't right here and Shaggy would rather be elsewhere. But then he runs into the problem every teen boy has where you like something despite the issues, but rather than addressing them, you just keep going, okay, this will be fine. Shaggy and the Crazy ends up saving Velma, which is enough of a high tension moment that makes her think, okay, this is working out, effectively buying Shaggy another week in this relationship, as he's doing the bare minimum to make her think, okay, this can work out, as he holds her hand as Scooby is in his arms, showing that he can make an effort, which gives you the feels, and I love what a good trap this is. As fundamentally, the clever thing that this show does is that it lets them have small wins in their relationship. They'll start off an episode with problems, but by the end of it, it seems like they're good. They'll fix them, they'll have small wins, and you're implied with the idea, okay, they're figuring it out, only for us to later realize that they either don't follow through on those things, or they're just fixing superficial ones and not the actual problems with their relationship. Like see 2 episodes later where Velma, for some reason, decided to ask Shaggy to cut junk food out of his diet. Yes, she asked Shaggy to watch what he eats. Now this is another request from Velma that isn't unreasonable at first glance. Health is very important, and having an insane metabolism and being skinny doesn't mean you're actually being healthy. So suggesting to the high school boy that maybe we should watch what you eat isn't like the worst idea in the world. The only problem, Velma isn't suggesting this. She's bullying him into it.
Didn't we agree that you would cut out the junk food?
Again, this is the slow creep of Velma's worst tendencies coming to the surface as it pertains to Shaggy. At the start, there's some red flags here, but what she wants and her situation is semi-sympathetic, or what she's requesting seems semi-reasonable. But that's what these should be, requests. It's Shaggy's life, he can put whatever he wants into his body, and she's not his neglectful parent, so she can't really demand any changes. But Velma is demanding this. She keeps saying that they talked about it and he agreed to it, when, as we'll see later, Shaggy doesn't really agree to this. Velma seems like she throws fits, Shaggy wanting to avoid conflict agrees to it, and then later Velma will hold that promise over his head, making him feel guilty and letting her push him into doing what she wants. He's trying to keep his girlfriend happy and trying to avoid himself some grief. And this whole situation of the junk food is just us being super sympathetic to Shaggy's situation as we watch him just long to eat, with Velma shooting him dirty looks at every time he even thinks about it. Shaggy does screw things up because of food, but he also saves the day by being himself, and at the end we see him eating junk food again. All while Velma doesn't really learn a damn thing. She's just sitting there mad, and the show implies that the audience should kind of feel good about this. We are pretty much always on Shaggy's side, as everything here is designed to make us sympathize with him, and that is very much the plan. And that vibe only keeps going throughout the show. As Velma is trying to control what Shaggy eats, turns out that is just a small part of a much bigger campaign to change Shaggy into what her supposed ideal partner should be, which is fucked up and not healthy in the slightest. But for all this supposed bias in the series, where we clearly see that Velma is wrong for doing what she does, we also still get moments to sympathize with her, as you realize that she doesn't know what she's doing.
I mean, I'm just wondering, Do boys like it when you tell them what to do?
Now this is the key that keeps Velma from being a villain in her own show. The story makes sure that for how weird and controlling she's getting, for all of her anger and the annoyance we get as an audience from her trying to turn Shaggy into something he's not, the story goes a long way to show that while she talks a very aggressive game, Velma doesn't really know what it means to be in a relationship. She doesn't know how to act, what boundaries should be set, and what it even means to love a person romantically. When she's alone with Daphne, she asks her if boys like being kept on a short leash and told what to do. With Daphne, whose mind is on other things and her parents' marriage being what it is, reinforce the idea that it's fine to boss your partner around. But this revealing fact that Velma doesn't know how she should be acting with her partner, it informs a lot about how she's been acting. Velma thinks things are almost working out, but keeping it hidden and sharing her boyfriend with his dog is not something that she's comfortable with. So she pushes for things she thinks will make it better, despite the reality that she is struggling to adapt or change course when her ideas of what to do are clearly going south. Neglecting Shaggy emotionally, not listening to him as she tries to manifest the relationship she's cooked up in her own head, not the one she actually has. But we see that she's confused and doesn't fully know if what she's doing is right. The person she tries to confide to doesn't really give her the best advice, as she asks another teenager, and she is also withholding a lot of context. So her friend ends up validating a bad idea, leading Velma to double down, when instead of telling him what to do, she needs to be listening more, something that she continually proves that she is terrible at.
Don't mention his nose.
Hey there, Cappy. What happened to the old sniffer?
Like, this song to me is very important. We need to assess that Velma, for all of her flaws and how much worse she's gonna get, she is, at the end of the day, a confused teenager who has no idea what she's doing. She's chasing what she believes to be an ideal type of relationship with the ideal type of man, with her assuming that her first crush was endgame and going all in on wrong assumptions. Shaggy is messing up in his own way, though it is way less offensive, as inept versus controlling is a way easier pill to swallow. He has his own flaws and he is contributing to making the situation worse in his own way, but yeah, he also is gonna look very good by comparison.
Ow!
So Velma's slow descent into her hostile takeover of Shaggy's life has gone from having a rational, you can understand this, to a no, mask off, this is bad territory, as she is now fully trying to change who he is. Velma is trying to keep Shaggy from saying the word like, because, and I quote, "It makes you sound ignorant." This is when you know shit like this is fully a her problem. Watch what you eat, that's an overstep, but it's health, you can chalk that up to worry. But once Velma starts talking about how Shaggy should speak, that's where she loses any legs she might have had to stand on. As before, yeah, that could be a problem for Shaggy, but not liking how Shaggy talks, girl, that's a you problem. But she decides to try anyway, and the way she goes about it is just, she's having Shaggy literally hurt himself. Yeah, she's making him hurt himself with a rubber band. And after a while, she just starts doing it instead. It's at this point where you realize, okay, this is not girlfriend behavior, this is bad mom, and either way, you need to be running. Especially when after that she decides, okay, him talking how I want isn't enough, he also needs to look how I want.
What's wrong with my pants?
You promised me you were going to start caring more about your appearance.
Velma is a control freak, and she gets away with it by again forcing Shaggy to make promises he doesn't want to make, as "you promised" is her real catchphrase in this show. Shaggy just goes along with this, and this is the point in the show where you realize, yeah, there's no hope for them. Even when he does stand up for himself, he decided to say, hey, I'm going to talk and dress how I like, which good for him, but then he decides to stay with her. And not really address, hey, what was that about? This is what I mean by the show being smart and how it handles these two being such a shit show. As rather than building one massive downward spiral, Shaggy will make an effort, he'll stand up for himself on what he wants to wear and what he wants to eat. But these things are all symptoms of much bigger problems with their relationship. Shaggy makes baby steps, but he never works to change the status quo of their relationship. He makes minor adjustments, but then he just goes back to enjoying the status quo again. He doesn't call Velma on her behavior, nobody does, so there's never any real impetus for Velma to fully change or acknowledge okay, I'm fucking this up. Shaggy just gets okay with handling bad situations. He's literally the "this is fine" meme. Meanwhile, Velma is a genius who wouldn't know a sunk cost fallacy even if she's tongue deep in one. She's chalking up her unhappiness to external factors like the relationship not being public, the flaws in Shaggy's character, not taking a breath and really looking at herself and asking if any of this is actually what she wants. that even if yes, she has romantic feelings for Shaggy, that can't overcome the many ways they're incompatible long term. As every episode, she is finding new things about him that annoy her.
I hate myself for liking him, then I miss him. Then I see him again, then he does something stupid.
This is the most high school ass relationship ever. Like genuinely, both of them are too mature to be in this relationship, especially with each other. It worked when they were just hanging out together. Stuff kinda happened and figured, hey, they might as well date. But now their different wants and needs are clearly incompatible, with their immaturity and reactions not doing them any favors. Velma is worse than Shaggy here. That's very obvious. But I'm also glad that the show does put in the work to make sure that we know that this bitch is confused and not intentionally malicious. Velma is hitting a point where even she is questioning if he even cares for her and why she puts so much effort into him, when clearly Shaggy does care, it's just not in the way she wants. This is an issue they could easily clear up, but neither of them are willing to sit down and talk about what's going wrong in their relationship. Instead, Velma vents to her friends and family, who don't see the worst of Velma's harebrained scheme, so end up giving her bad advice of he'll come around or doubling down. They also don't know she's resenting a dog for cock blocking her.
Yippee!
Yeah, yippee.
Also, fun fact, these two have only been together a month. Yeah, that's how fast this ship started to rot and sink. Velma went from trying to control how Shaggy ate, talked, and looked in just a month. I know that's like a year in high school time, but this is just further proof that neither of them are ready for this. Velma is chasing some ideal relationship that she's cooked up in her head that society has told her, yeah, this is what I think I should want, with grand declarations of love, of it just being just them and it being so romantic. She keeps trying to do the things and hit these hallmarks and signifiers of what she thinks will make her happy, while just being blind how miserable she's making Shaggy.
Do you not want to go to the prom with me? If you don't want to go, just tell me. I knew it! I knew it!
Velma, stop breaking the cemetery! I was just kidding!
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
She is throwing fits and destroying public property. Shaggy's saying okay just to calm her down. He's locked into another promise that he knows if he makes her mad, this will all just keep repeating again, but he likes her, so he keeps sticking around, even when shit like this is happening more often than he'd like, with only the occasional makeout sesh to make it kinda balance out. But he's committed himself to going with prom with her, ignoring his movie night with Scooby, but rather than telling the dog what's going on, he starts lying to everybody. So yeah, I totally told Scooby he was fine with it, telling Scooby, oh no, yeah, I'm gonna just be gone for a quick second, and just trying to sneak out and go to prom with her. Because for Shaggy, even if it's worse for his health, he'll always pick the path of least conflict, even when it's actually more work than just speaking his mind. Though he may have had a point, as Scooby does eventually catch them.
Are you cheating on me?
Also, this bears mentioning Scooby and Shaggy are an iconic duo, but their relationship in this show is appropriately weird. Like, they are borderline codependent at times, with the exact definition of how you should describe them fluctuating constantly, sometimes as shades of parent and child. Shaggy doesn't want Scooby to feel hurt by Velma being with him, like a single parent bringing their new partner to meet their kid, as he cares for both of them, but he doesn't want one to feel like they're being replaced by the other. But other times, it's not parent and child, sometimes they're just best friends, other times they're pet and owner, and they are everything else in between. With their love, while adorable,
I'll see you in the morning, buddy.
I hope so.
it is a lot. So you can somewhat get where Velma's coming from when this dog is just hogging her man and Shaggy's picking him over her almost all the time. But then Scooby gets so butthurt when he finds out about Velma and Shaggy, taking this as a betrayal, and my honest reaction was, dude, you're the pet. Calm down. Though Shaggy is not helping any of this, as in not wanting to make anyone mad, his confession is as terrible as it is tepid.
Kinda sorta semi-official basis, me and Velma are like kinda sorta spending more time together than you and me, you got it?
So yeah, Shaggy is struggling to say what he wants and what's happening. He's so meek that Scooby ends up in tears while Velma's annoyed that that was the best he could do. Shaggy was forced in this confession by getting caught, and when he turns to Velma for help, she lets him deal with his own mess. The three of them are a wreck after this. They are mad and fighting, with Velma getting one of the funniest lines in the series when she says that their group needs to fix their emotional mess, when no. It's just you three. Fred and Daphne are mostly okay. At least they finally try and talk things out. And it ends with Velma saying an ultimatum that it's either her or Scoob. But because this isn't enough pressure, she threatens Shaggy with the fact that the whole school will know that Shaggy picked a dog over his girlfriend. So yeah, Velma, she sucks. Like, in this relationship. As a character though, I love her, but this is rough behavior. She's blaming everything that's going wrong with the team on Shaggy and how he is incapable of making a choice. something that he keeps being unable to do, leaving the other pricks of this triangle mad. But after all this drama, all this Velma being pissed, Shaggy being bullied, it should be no surprise that Shaggy picked Scooby.
But we can still be friends, right?
Are you whack?
Now this is really the crazy part to me. Essentially, Scooby gets sent to jail for the only crime he didn't commit, leaving Shaggy a nervous wreck and Velma over cloud 9 at the dog getting taken out of the equation, with her just being unable to pretend that this isn't the case.
Scooby'll get out. Someday. Meanwhile, maybe it's time to move on.
Like, girl, have some social tact, have some grace here. Then we get one of the more wonderful examples of how, despite how aggressive she can be, she can't read the room for shit, doing a Scooby impression to fill the void after she talks so much shit and thinking that this would go over, well, positively at all. But earlier before this, we do get another example of why this whole relationship has dragged on for as long as it has. How Velma, for all of her complaints, still clings to the idea that Shaggy was the one for her, and it all comes down to moments. She does in fact like Shaggy, but romantically when they're together, she finds him frustrating. However, every once in a while, things do work out. He'll make her laugh, he'll take her hand, and they'll start dancing. He'll step in to get her out of an awkward situation like another guy crushing on her. They have moments where Shaggy will save her life and make her happy, with Velma pretty much taking those isolated moments saying, okay, how can I feel like this all the time? She uses them to justify why this relationship is worth fighting for, as she has these brief instances that fulfills the fantasy of what she's looking for and not realizes that those are moments. And when you're in a relationship with somebody, you have to take the whole, not just the nice thing that happens once a week. She refused to admit that the actual experience of being with Shaggy is a letdown. This is Velma's first real relationship. It's never stated, but you get the picture. These two are implied to have been friends for years, so it probably only took a brief moment or two for her to think, okay, this can work out, we just need to take the leap. Now, these brief moments of being happy could grow into something more. She failed to realize that Shaggy just isn't ready to be in a relationship. He is so clearly comfortable where he's at, and he is so clearly happy just being with Scooby. So her not realizing this, her insistence on trying to change him, all of it just made her more and more miserable when really she just needed to let go and find something different. Not try to contort the stoner into a prep school kid. Shaggy always prioritized Scooby over her, that is not in doubt. But instead of getting bitter and staying quiet, she just needed to say her piece, then move on. But no, she kept pushing, plotting, and couldn't contain her glee when something bad would happen to the dog. This is shitty behavior, and this is a shitty relationship. But the show, again, thankfully knows she's being shitty. These two were written to be a bad couple from the start, with us seeing why they weren't a match and why they each in their own way have so much room to grow. Shaggy wasn't mature enough for this, and he never advocated for himself enough, and just found ways to become comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Velma is a hot mess who keeps doubling down and trying way too hard to make Shaggy into something he's not. At the end of the day, they kind of needed to be in this relationship, as they needed it to fail, as how else would they learn? They both had issues, it wasn't healthy, but they got out of it with some minor tears and a few weeks of being salty. This is the kind of trial and tribulations that really define high school and what so many people go through, as now they can be better people moving forward and actually pursue what they want. The next time Shaggy sees a girl that he likes, does he pussyfoot around his dog and luck into it? No, he tells Scooby to move the fuck over so he can sit next to the exchange student who is actually a villain. Velma goes from bitter and resentful but still trying to get Shaggy back to accepting the L, getting her jokes in, like telling him to let this poor woman go, only for her to support this relationship and to be fully in Shaggy's corner when they find out that the girl is evil and that Shaggy, in fact, deserves better than this. Velma's even able to make peace with the dog.
Even though you stole my boyfriend, I'd never let anyone hurt you, Scooby-Doo.
What happened sucked, but they were able to survive it and become better people because of it. Not everyone needs to be in a shitty relationship, but for them, what they went through, what they learned from it, it was very much worth the trade-off. And when they get the chance to rekindle their relationship after they both have come so far and come to terms with what happened, Velma says no. Things weren't always bad, but she's realized that she doesn't feel the same way about Shaggy anymore. She's realized that she doesn't need him, she doesn't need this relationship, and that while she appreciates him as a friend, she's ready to move on with her life. As in her time alone, she's able to self-reflect and realize, okay, no, I have some real issues I need to work through. Like how she's actually really lonely. As in this friend group, she's kind of the odd one out. Fred and Daphne were a couple. Shaggy and Scooby were always doing their thing. She was the one who was alone and suffering from high school FOMO. This sucked, but she's able to realize that she kind of wants her own friends and learns to ignore the things that she thinks high schoolers should be doing. She starts enjoying the things that she wants to do and spending with those she actually wants to be with.
This is
hot dog water?
So this will probably shock nobody over the age of 10, but Velma being queer has been a headcanon or joke for decades.
Well, Daphne, I believe she got around quite a bit, but Velma? I always thought she was
Everybody did.
Now the history for this is kind of basic. Fred and Daphne as a couple were too established. We weren't ready to talk about bi people yet. Shaggy was getting all the samples, but while Velma had options, they were fewer and far between. So the idea that anyone out of the entire Scooby cast would be a member of the LGBT gang, it was kinda gonna be her. With Mystery Incorporated being the first series to go out of its way and imply that this is in fact what's happening.
That's my girl.
Yeah, this was pre-Korosami and Steven Universe. The door on rep in major animated kid shows was not open yet, leaving us in this weird thirsty for rep era where we would get scraps and treat them like diamonds. Like there was this tweet I remember seeing a while back about how kids these days just don't understand just how insane people lost their minds over hints back in the day. Seeing open queer couples now is great, it's cool, but it still can't compete with the utter genuinely unhinged joy people got over face touches and hand holding. So even though the rep is better, it just doesn't hit the same. But that's a fucked up era of TV some of us grew up in. Honestly, it is way better today, but there was something here. With Velma x Hot Dog Water falling firmly into this weird category. The story pretty much looked us dead in the eye, mouthed the words, but couldn't say anything more than the non-committal "my girl" in the finale. Everyone who ever worked on the show has been like, okay, yeah, they were in love and dating, and in response, we would all collectively say, no shit. But censorship is censorship, so we took what we could get. With it taking another couple of years before we would get a version of Velma with uncut confirmation of her status as a lover of women, who was a villain. Because of course it was, we can't change Velma's type too much now. But Mystery Incorporated is the real first thing where just, they couldn't put a label on it, but you could see what was happening. But knowing this, seeing what happens in season 2, it does recolor a lot of Velma's failed relationship with Shaggy, informing a lot of how her early behavior and her habit of trying to force an idealized relationship makes just so much sense. As she's doing what she's been brainwashed by society into thinking she wants, when actually it's something else entirely. But she hadn't figured it out yet, so she kept forcing on to Shaggy the supposed hallmarks of a good man. She thought she wanted someone who talked well, looked nice, obsessed with her in that protective kind of way. All things that you know that she learned from TV. She tried to force all this onto Shaggy when even she really wasn't feeling it. She kept asking all her friends like, is this what I should be doing? They would say, okay, no, he'll come around. And really he wasn't her type. And before we get into that convo, Showrunner has already confirmed that Velma was meant to be a lesbian. So she's not bi. There are shots of her admiring men who aren't Shaggy, but after a certain point, hot is hot, and you just have to appreciate it. She could be bi in the show, you can definitely have that interpretation, and it works completely fine. But that extra context of what the writers were going for make her earlier actions to me make way more sense. Especially when we wrap in just how often we see how much attention Velma gives to the other women in this show. Sometimes it's simple and friendly saying Daphne is going all out on this bikini. You could chalk up her obsession with the Hex Girls as just being normal Swiftie behavior, but then we have moments where Velma is feeling lonely, and she finds solace in talking to another woman on the internet, who she then finds out is a mermaid. Velma is immediately enraptured by her, keeping her a secret from her friends and thinking of her as a very special friend, who she doesn't want to share with the others, and even had to hide her from her mom. This was something, though the mermaid did turn out to be a grown-ass woman who was married to a male teacher. So yes, Velma was baited and catfished, but she was still open to stay in touch. But this is all after her breakup with Shaggy, and this increased focus on women is followed up by her being less interested in men who she might have been interested before.
Velma, do you believe in love at first sight?
In your case, no.
All of these elements built to make a story about how Velma is finding herself in the most confusing time of her life, with even our first introduction of her being a metaphor for this situation. As when we first meet her, she is forced to work at her mom's tourist trap. She's keep having to repeat the lies about the town and the various hoaxes, and she is forced to keep selling it even though she is clearly unhappy. And this kind of reflects Velma's own situation in the first season. Velma's forced to repeat this false narrative that she doesn't really believe in, even though it makes her miserable, and it's only by saying F it and snapping is she finally able to get the space she needs to pursue her truth, which in this case would be mysteries and yes, a girl named Hot Dog Water.
And by the way, my real name, it's Marcy.
You have no idea how much I'd grown through them giving Velma a love interest, only to name her Hot Dog Water, and having her referenced as such by most of the cast. Velma occasionally calls her by her real name Marcy, but just as often she calls her by that dumb nickname because apparently she smells like that stuff. And kids are mean like that, just like the writers, because they did her so dirty. Introduced as an old rival of Velma's in the first season, we pretty much see nothing of Marcy in the first half. She shows up, they hate each other, then it's revealed she's intentionally trying to sink her father's business to sell all the scrap metal for its unique chemical properties. Then Velma sends her to jail. We actually see her early in this. She was the student who was exchanged with Shaggy's crush, but that's pretty much all we get of her. She's just a diet Velma right down to the color scheme. They're both highly intelligent with a habit of ignoring others' wants for their own and doing what they think is for the best. So if you want to know why these two grew up to be rivals, it's an easy answer. They hate themselves. But Marcy is gone, only for her to pop back up in the story in season 2, where after the gang broke up, they come back to town to find everything has changed, and Velma, in their absence, has gotten very close to Marcy.
Doesn't anyone care about mystery solving anymore?
I care. You still got me.
Scraps that feel like diamonds. Yes, in the intervening months, Velma and Marcy have started working for one of the resident bad guys, with it being implied it's their plan to betray him later, though they also know that there might be worse things than him. Velma brings on Marcy to replace Daphne, who refuses to rejoin the team on account of Fred proposing to her, then abandoning town after he found out that his dad was actually his kidnapper. Long story, though honestly, Fred Sr. should have been the main villain of the series, even if he is just the Green Goblin. But she's on the team, everyone's a little bit slow to fully embrace Marcy as being here. Some are quicker than others, but through all of it, the two of them show why they make such an effective duo. They bounce off each other, they work together to crack science problems. They share the secret and stress of who they are actually working for. Marcy checks all the boxes Velma allegedly wanted with Shaggy while stripping away the ones that she actually never cared about. Marcy is smart, she is well-spoken, and Velma doesn't actually care if she doesn't dress nice. Velma likes Marcy for who she is and isn't trying to change her. This is growth. It really feels like these two are being set up to be the fun straight woman of the team. Fred's a wreck at this point, Shaggy and Scooby are just themselves, so having these two direct the audience frustration at the lack of focus on the bigger mysteries of the show, it just felt so right, which is a massive turnaround from the previous situation where Velma felt frustrating. So them risking their lives for each other, their chemistry, the scraps, it all felt like we were getting good shit that could only get better.
Now that Daphne's back, we
Okay, Hot Dog Water being the most commonly used name to refer to her just annoys me, but this actually pissed me off. As after Marcy got her own spot in the intro, Daphne ends up rejoining the team in episode 4 after it turns out that her boyfriend was a kidnapping psycho clown baby. So fresh off of getting their original pick back, the rest of Mystery Inc. tells Marcy to hit the showers, taking her off the team in what feels just so weird. Like, as they could just have Daphne and Marcy both be here. Like, they have space in the van, so this shit doesn't make sense to me, especially when we've seen that she has so much to bring to the table. Velma tries to make some excuse for this dumb decision, but Marcy is heartbroken. More scraps about how they were gonna be something.
Marcy, I'm sorry. I fought for you to stay.
Velma was her first ever friend. Scrap, scrap, scrap. All this is this deep longing with a hint of betrayal that this is how things are going down. With Velma not having any real response other than she's sorry and wait, you thought we were doing what? But at the end of things, Marcy leaves, only to reveal that she's actually still working for Mr. E as some kind of triple agent. We technically already knew this, but the fact that she reports to him right after the breakup with Velma, it does do this weird thing where now it feels like everything Hot Dog Water did was a manipulation, which is crazy. That is heartbreaking, and oh shit, they're gonna be rivals. Let's fucking go. Okay, this is the thing that actually shocked me. Marcy has this big stinger about how, oh, she has Velma right where she wants her, only to just not show up for the rest of the series, really. She doesn't become a recurring antagonist that Velma has to fight. We don't mind the betrayal and Velma's guilt. With the one time we actually see them fight, Velma doesn't even know it's Marcy, with her only figuring it out at the end. At which point Marcy folds, and after all that shit about having her right where she wants her, possibly using Velma's feelings to get what she wants, Marcy just gives up. Like, she can fully fly away, but seeing Velma recognize her is enough for Marcy to just throw in the towel and give Velma the MacGuffin. The only thing we have between this...
Don't worry, I got it handled. I got Velma right where I want her, and she doesn't suspect a thing.
Many hours later.
But you're a hard girl to fool, V. I'm glad you recognized me.
Is this one scene at a party where they wave and smile at each other. This is one of those situations where it honestly feels like they were gonna do something more, give Marcy a bigger role, only to back out of it at the last minute, reducing her to just kind of being a one-off villain with some cameos later down the road. I don't know if things are getting too explicit so they had to reduce her role, I kinda doubt that, but it does feel like I was personally robbed of a very fun thing. But Marcy's gone, she would have a few cameos later, and then she'd die. No, for real, she straight up just gets shot. The bad guys kidnap her to force the gang's compliance. They almost free her and get away, but Marcy has to take the evil bird hostage so Velma and the rest can go. Things seem fine, then she dies. And it's so casual and just, there's no like falling off a cliff into darkness. It's not, oh, something happened, she didn't get disintegrated. They just shoot her with a gun. And that is crazy for a PG show. And you think, oh my god, how can they come back from this? And the answer is the universe resets. I'm not joking. Everyone just wakes up with better lives, better parents, higher positions in the school hierarchy, and Velma is now dating a very much alive Marcy, which is cool if you ignore the fact that they're now living somebody else's life, which is nightmare fuel incarnate. But Marcy called Velma her girl, so things aren't all bad. And maybe it was worth it. Velma was a mess in this show. Was she toxic? Yeah, but it was a normal high school mess levels of bad. She was rough, but she was also learning, and the show went out of its way to give us a rationale for why she was like this. About showing that, yeah, despite what she was going through, Shaggy had his own issues as well. Everything here was motivated more by ignorance than malice. And that understanding keeps me from ever truly disliking Velma. The ship sucked, but that was by design. And personally, I have never fucked with Shaggy x Velma, so I can live with this. So at the end of the day, Mystery Inc. gave us a ship that, while doomed to fail, delivered a lot of good lessons, while also demonstrating that slow decline into awful so many relationships slip into. How small wins along the way trick us into thinking that things are getting better, when really they're just a distraction from the real problems. That sometimes your friend doesn't make a good partner. Sometimes you need to focus on yourself and grow, and that way you'll be able to find the person that you actually fit with, even if that end game we barely see any of. Overall, I love this show, like the end game, so can't really complain, especially when it comes to Velma, there's been enough of that already.